I'm Earl Heyler, and this is our old homestead. Born in 1918, and always worked on the farm. Worked the fall of '38 for REA when they built their lines in the Liberty area.
I'm Jeff Fetzer. I'm the corporate communicator for Tri-County Rural Electric Cooperative, and I am in the kitchen of the Earl Heyler home in Nauvoo, Pennsylvania. Earl is one of the men responsible for bringing electricity to rural Tioga and Lycoming counties, as he was an employee of the cooperative in the 1930s. We're interviewing Earl because we are celebrating our 75th anniversary in 2011, and Mr. Heyler was very much a part of our history and our heritage as a cooperative.
I was just out of high school a year or two, and in the fall of the year we had our work pretty well done, and along with a lot of other locals, we worked that fall for the REA when they built this line. I started working on the pole truck. We delivered the poles to the engineers laid out the lines, and we delivered poles according to the height that they needed. And then I changed and went on the digging crew for the latter part of the working here. There was a crew of us, probably a dozen men working on the digging crew, and we was assigned to dig a hole, and they had I think his name was Kilgore, had a pickup truck, and as we would finish our hole, he'd pick us up and take us to the next one. And that's the way this line was built. Had a bar and long-handled shovel and a spade is what we used to dig these holes, plus the help of a dynamite man when we had hard ones. You dug the holes according to the height of the pole. It run mostly from 4 feet to 5 feet. That they were all dug by hand. We worked 10-hour days. It was work, and but there was a lot of people looking for work back then. So if you didn't want to work, why, there was somebody to take your place. They hired a lot of local things. The ones that were on the digging crew were all local people from the area that it was going to serve. And if you got your name on the list, I think out here at Liberty, I believe Fred Snyder had kind of a list, and as they needed men, they'd go to the list and picked up help that way. I graduated in '36, so I was just out of high school, and they had older men working then. I mean, work wasn't plentiful, you see, and there were some middle-aged people digging holes too, and there's nobody living that I worked with anyhow, and I don't know some of the other crews. There was just about as many pikers as there was diggers. Pikers, they have long poles. The lighter the pole, the better, with a spike on the end, and they had little dollies that they laid one end of the pole up, and your pikers had different length pikes in. So you needed enough men to raise the pole. Because I remember winding around the wire, and tacking it on the bottom of the pole before it went up. Then the wire and the poles was all delivered with horses. They'd set them big rolls up someplace and hook a team of horses on. It didn't take long to build this line. I don't know, 3 months maybe, mostly. This line was pretty much built with a few bosses, and the rest was local. It was run pretty well like clockwork. If we could digging, and right afterwards, then the poles and the wire and things were delivered right on the line, and they just, as long as you could keep ahead of them, they set, you could follow us right up setting poles. REA had started out around the Mansfield, outside of the Mansfield area. Most of the smaller villages even had electricity, but the locals, farmers, very few of them was on the line. Just runs in my mind, might have turned electricity on someplace times around Thanksgiving time in the fall. It was pretty nice, everybody thought, and after they had the substations and so on, as they got done, they turned an area on. Well, you could do a lot of things with electricity that you couldn't do otherwise. Hook up a motor and do things that you couldn't do without. We don't realize what it's like not to have it now. We added milkers fairly quick, and cooling too. That's one thing we don't think about, how we cooled things before, what refrigeration really means. And washers, pretty nice to put things in a washer after using the scrub boards. I learned a lot even just to work on the line, what it was like. The things that you didn't like to see was a gravel hole close to a creek, because you're bound to hit water, and then you just forever falls in. I mean, you can't dig a nice hole, that or a rock hole. But the trouble was the rock holes had to be drilled by hand too. They sent 2 of them to dig a hole down to Blackwell's. I think it was around a Snake Rock. They had a rock hole. They swung the mauls 100 times right around their head, gained an inch. We don't realize that, how hard some of those stone are. The man holds the chisel, makes a quarter turn every time the hammer goes around. The poles come into Blackwell on the railroad. Had a pole yard and a winch to load them, and we loaded them on the truck just as the engineers. The lines are laid out by the engineers because you had a different size pole. They told you what you needed, and we put them on the truck in order as they should come off. That was quite an apparatus to take down Pine Creek. The roads are different down Pine Creek than they were back in '38. They had along the edge of the road, they had logs laid along. And sometimes you could look back at that rear tires on the trailer, and they'd be riding right along on top of them logs on the edge of the road, because they weren't made for trailers yet. Our wages weren't excessively big, but nobody's were back then. I think we had 40 cents an hour. We worked 10-hour days. It was average wage, and we've had good service. We can't complain any.